Hello everyone, so this is the second lecture on the chapter moving charge and magnetism. Today we will discuss force on a moving charge and cyclotron. Firstly, let's see what is this Oester's experiment. So in 1820, Hans Christian Oersted, he demonstrated that there is a close connection between electricity and magnetism. So to understand that, you can take a compass, a magnetic compass. A magnetic compass will normally show you the natural north-south direction, right? And if you bring the compass near a wire carrying current, then you will find some deflection. You'll find a deflection in the compass. Now, to understand this direction of deflection, we can consider the Ampere's Snow rule. So, in accordance with the Snow rule, it says that if the current enters through south and leaves the north, then the north pole of the compass needle will deflect along the west. So here in the figure number A, you can notice that the current is entering along the south and leaving the north, south and north, right? So in that case, the north of the compass needle is deflecting along the west. Okay, the situation will just be opposite when the current direction changes. Okay, so when the current is entering the north and leaving the south, in that case, the north of the compass needle is deflecting in the opposite direction. Now, this indicates that a wire carrying current produces a magnetic field around it. So we have Fleming's left-hand rule next, and this is actually used to find out the direction of the magnetic force. Now, if you align, you in your left hand, if you align the forefinger, number 2, represented here along the magnetic field direction, if you align the middle finger along the velocity vector, now this velocity vector, it is for the velocity of the moving charge or moving positive charge. Okay, so this is the direction, this is along the direction of the positive charge, moving positive charge, V vector. In such a case, the thumb will show you the direction of the magnetic force acting on the charged particle. So this F vector, the magnetic force, will be perpendicular to the plane containing the magnetic field vector and the velocity vector, and theta is the angle between the magnetic field vector and the velocity vector. So we have right hand thumb rule next. Now this right hand thumb rule was quite used in the previous lecture, and I did not include that in the PDF. Anyway, later on it has been added. Now, if you place your right hand in such a manner that the thumb is pointing along the direction of the current in a wire, okay, in a straight wire, then the direction in which the finger curls, they will show you the direction of the magnetic field produced around it. Okay, so this is situation number 1. Situation number 2 is, if the direction in which the finger curls, if they align with a loop carrying current, okay, if the direction aligns with this, then the thumb will show you the direction of the magnetic field. The thumb will show you the north pole. Okay, the direction in which the thumb points will be the north pole of the magnetic field, and the direction in which and the other side of the right hand, that will show you the south pole. Okay, so this is clearly understood, I suppose. Now we have magnetic force. So let's consider say the magnetic field vector is along this direction, and you have a charged particle, positive charged particle, fired along this direction. Okay, and let theta be the angle between the magnetic field and the velocity vector. In such a case, the force will act along this direction. Now, to understand that, again, you can refer these two figures. Now, this can be understood by using two rules. The first one is the Fleming's left-hand rule, and the second one is the right-hand rule. So, in accordance with Fleming's left-hand rule, so this has been covered in the previous topic. Now, you can see the the right-hand rule. In the right-hand rule, if your finger curls from V to B, okay, V vector to B vector, then the thumb will show you the direction of the force. Now let me write down the relation to understand that better. So the relation for magnetic force is QV cross B in vector form, and this becomes QVB sine theta. QVB sine theta. Now you see, while applying the right hand rule, you have to go from V vector to B vector. Now this is quite similar to the cross product direction determination, direction of cross product for A vector cross B vector, if you remember. Now here we are going from V vector to B vector, not B vector to V vector. You have to note it. Now when you use the right hand rule, you have to put your right hand in such a manner that you are going from velocity vector to field vector. In such a case, the thumb will show you the direction of the force. Okay, so this is one way of looking at it. F is in the direction of V cross B, the direction of cross product. Also, the same direction can be determined. The direction of the magnetic force can be determined by using the Fleming's left hand rule. If you align the direction of the field along the forefinger, the direction of the velocity vector, that is the motion of the positive charge, along the middle finger, and in such a case the direction of the magnetic force will be shown by the thumb. Now our relation comes out to be F equal to QVB sine theta. So we have four cases here, four special cases. So case number one, if theta equal to 0 degree or 180 degree. Now you see sine 0, sine 180 both gives you value as 0. Now in such a case F will be 0. So no force, no magnetic force acts on a charged particle which is moving parallel to the magnetic field or which is moving anti-parallel to the magnetic field. So that is case number one. Case number two, if theta equal to 90 degree. So in that case sine 90 is 1. So magnetic force is QVB. So this is the maximum value of the magnetic force. So when the charged particle enters, or when the charged particle is perpendicular to the magnetic field, then the force acting on the charged particle will be maximum. Okay, so we have case number 3. So case number 3, say the charged particle is at rest, so if V equal to 0, in that case also magnetic force will be 0. So you can understand that a charged particle which is at rest has no magnetic force acting on it. So no magnetic force acts on a charged particle at rest. And number 4 is if Q equal to 0, that is the particle has no charge, like a neutron. Okay, so neutral particle. So in that case also Fm will be 0. So no magnetic force acts on a neutral particle. So I hope this topic is clear, and we come to Lorentz force next. So Lorentz force is the combined effect of electric field and magnetic field on a moving charged particle. So if a region has both electric and magnetic field, then and a charged particle moves through that region, then two forces will act on the charged particle. The electric force will be given by QE, okay, and the magnetic force will be given by QV cross B. We are writing the vector relations. The combined effect, the net force, or you can say the net force acting on both the charges, Fe plus Fm, is what you call as the Lorentz force. So QE plus QV cross B. So once you take Q common here, you get E plus V cross B. So this is the relation for Lorentz force. Okay, nothing more here. Now we'll see how a charged particle moves in a uniform electric field. You can look at this diagram. Here you have two plates, charged plates. This is the positive plate, this is the negative plate. Okay, these are the field lines shown from going from positive to negative plate, okay, showing the direction of the electric field. Now this is the x-axis and y-axis. Will fire a positive charge along the x-axis from the origin O. Now what you notice is as soon as the charge particle is fired, the positive charge is fired, it deflects. It moves along the negative plate. So there is an acceleration along the y-axis, you can say. There is no acceleration and therefore there is no force along the x-axis. So this is the path of the charged particle when it enters this uniform electric field. Now straightway I'll go to the last relation. So the relation, the vertical deflection y, okay, this particular deflection y is given by QE by 2mv square, okay, multiplied by x square. Now since this QE by 2mv square is a constant, therefore we can write it as kx square, and this is the relation here you need to remember. Now this kx square is the equation of a parabola, right? It is showing that the path of the charged particle is parabolic. Now the deflection is proportional to q by m, the charge by mass ratio. So after this we have a charged particle moving in a uniform magnetic field. So case number 1, when velocity vector, when the charged particle is moving parallel to the magnetic field, or it is moving anti-parallel to the magnetic field, that is theta equal to 0 degree or 90 degree. Now we have covered this already. So in such a case, F will be equal to QVB sine theta, and that will be 0. Okay, so no force acts on a charged particle when it is moving parallel or anti-parallel to the magnetic field. Case number 2, when theta equal to 90 degree. Now we have a couple of relations coming out from this second case. So when theta equal to 90 degree, there is v vector is perpendicular to b vector. Velocity vector is perpendicular to the magnetic field vector. So in that case, your magnetic force, let me write down the scalar version, equal to QVB sine theta, and since theta is 90, that will give you QVB. So this, of course, this magnitude will be maximum, the force magnitude will be maximum. Now if you see that situation with the help of a diagram, so in this figure, this blue cross are indicating that the magnetic field is entering inside the plane of the display or plane of the page. Okay. Now a charged particle, positive charged particle, is shown to move in a circular path, right? So we are actually supposed to find out this force, direction of the force. Now if you fire a charged particle in this manner, just after entering the field, it will tend to move in a circular path. Okay, so the instant, say we consider this instantaneous position at p, the velocity vector here is v vector, okay, and the field, magnetic field, is entering perpendicular, okay, to this v vector. Okay, the magnetic b vector is perpendicular to v vector. Now if you apply the Fleming's left hand rule, you put your forefinger along the direction of the magnetic field that is entering the page, and the middle finger along the direction of v vector. In such a case, the thumb will show you the direction of f. Okay, so at various positions, if you apply the Fleming's left hand rule, here also if you see, the force is directed along this way. So you need to check for all the 4 positions, and you will see that the charged particle will tend to move in a circular path. Okay, so we need to find out what is the radius of the circular path, and then the time period, frequency, and angular frequency. Now here, this magnetic force, this is the magnetic force, right? This magnetic force is providing the necessary centripetal force for the charged particle to move in a circular path, and therefore we can write down Fc, the centripetal force, is provided by the magnetic force Fm, right? So we can write down Fc, the centripetal force relation is mv square by r, and this is provided by QVB, So from here you get R equal to mv by qb. So this is the relation for radius of the circular path, right? Next we have time period. Now to find out time period t, now since the charged particle is describing a circular path of radius r, the circumference or the distance it covers in one oscillation is 2 pi r, right? The circumference of the circle. So 2 pi r by v is your relation. So distance covered by speed, right? So 2 pi by v into the relation for r is mv by qb. So this gives you 2 pi m by qb. So the time period relation is 2 pi m by qb. So this is the time needed for the charged particle to complete one oscillation or one complete circle. The frequency nu is equal to 1 by t, so that is qb by 2 pi m, and the angular frequency relation is omega equal to 2 pi nu, so you get omega equal to qb by m. I hope these points are clear. So here in this diagram you need to notice that the speed remains constant, okay, v vector. The speed remains constant, sorry, not v vector, it's v. The speed remains constant, the kinetic energy remains constant for the charged particle, but the velocity changes because the direction is changing at every instant. Therefore, the velocity is changing and the momentum is changing. Also, point number 2, that is point number 1, these are given there in the note. Point number 2 is particles with same momentum will have equally curved paths. Now, the radius relation was mv by qb, right? So, mv you can write on p by qb. So, when momentum is same, then the radius will also be same. Now, you can consider the case of electron and positron, okay? So in case of electron and positron, if they are fired with same speed, of course their masses are same, their charges are same. So in that case, momentum will be constant, right? So in a given magnetic field, they'll have different directions of, different directions of motion, revolution. Different directions of revolution, but they'll have the same radius. So that confirms point number 2. Point number 3, to understand that, let's see this diagram. So note number 3 is radius, is for the radius r equal to mv by qb. Now for when velocity and magnetic field is constant for a given velocity for all the charged particles and given magnetic field, r is proportional to mass by charge ratio, right? So r is proportional to mass by charge ratio. In that case, let's consider 4 particles. No, 5. Positron, electron, proton, neutron, alpha. Alpha is helium-2 plus, right? So in accordance with this relation r proportional to m by q, okay, let me work this out here. So r is proportional to m by q. Now for proton, this will be proportional to mp by e. For alpha, this will be proportional to 4 mp by twice e, right, which is 2 times of mp. Sorry, 2 times of mp by e. Now this is like double of radius of proton. So radius of alpha particle will be double of the radius of proton. Then radius of electron or positron, they'll have different direction of revolution, or deflection you can say. So the radius is proportional to me divided by E, and finally you have neutron proportional to mass of neutron divided by neutron has no charge, therefore denominator is 0. So R comes out to be infinity, right? So if you write down the decreasing order of radius of all these 5 particles, neutron will, since the radius is infinity, neutron will go undeviated. Therefore, the radius of neutron will be followed by radius of alpha particle, which comes second, then radius of proton, then radius of electron and positron. The difference between the radius or the difference between the deflection of electron and positron is that the positron will deflect along the left. Okay, so if you apply your Fleming's left hand rule here, so align your left hand again, put the forefinger in the direction of the field that is entering the page. Okay, the field is entering the page, and put the middle finger along the direction of the charges fired, right? So upward direction, the forefinger inside the page towards the page entering, and then middle finger upwards in the direction in which the charges are fired, right? In that case, the thumb will show you the direction in which the positive charge will tend to move, right? So consequently, the direction of the negative charge will just be opposite. The deflection of the negative charge will just be opposite. So in accordance with this relation that we have worked out here on the right, or this, you can see that neutron has maximum radius, which means infinity, okay, going straight, undeviated. Neutral particle is not affected by magnetic field, right? We have covered that. Next, radius of alpha particle is the second one. Next, radius of proton, this, the white one. Next, you have radius of positron here and radius of electron here. They have the same radius. Okay, this topic is clearly understood, I suppose. So you can do a homework, and you can share your result. You can share your work with me. Just one thing which you can do is that if the magnetic field is directed outside the page, the same figure again. Of course, that will be pretty simple, but still I want you to work that out. And secondly, work out similar plot for electron, positron, proton, neutron, alpha I have shown, and lithium 3+ you can include. You can just find out the trajectory of lithium plus. Okay, that I'm leaving it on you. Now the third case, when the charged particle makes an angle theta with B. Now it is neither 0, neither 90, nor 180. So we have covered these three angles, right? 0, 90, and 180. Now say the charged particle is making angle theta. Say theta is 30 degrees, 60 degrees. You can consider any random angle. So in such a case, what will happen? You see the velocity vector is along this direction. The magnetic field is along this direction. Now, the component v cos theta of the velocity vector that will propel the charge in the forward direction, right? That will forward direction, that is in the direction of the magnetic field. The component v sin theta of v vector will try to give the charged particle a circular path. So the combined effect is a helical path. Okay, you see this is a helix. Now DNA structure is a helix, right? Even in the solar system, the planets move in helical path around the sun. This is not a circular path exactly. You can check YouTube by putting the keywords helical motion of the solar system. You have a wonderful simulation there. Now, so who is providing in this particular figure? Who is providing the centripetal force? Of course, the magnetic force. Now, which component of velocity vector is driving the charged particle to move in a circular path? That is the v sin theta. Now, the centripetal force in this case, the centripetal force is mv square by r becomes mv sin theta square by r. right? And now you see here, the v sine theta and b vector, aren't they perpendicular to each other? So the angle is 90 degree, right? So the relation magnetic force, which is qvb, I'll be writing that as qv sine theta b sine 90 degree. Now this sine 90 degree, is the angle between v sine theta and b vector. Okay, and here v sine theta is like the velocity which is responsible for the velocity in the magnetic force. Okay, this is responsible for driving this charged particle in a circular path. Now if you work out this relation, what you get is r equal to mv sine theta by qb. Remember, this relation was mv by qb in the previous expression when the charged particle was entering perpendicularly. Okay, so here we have a sine theta only. mv sine theta is there along with the previous relation, mv sine theta by qb. Time period, frequency and angular frequency remains the same, so I'm not going into details of them. You can just see the work in the PDF. So the time period is 2 pi m by qb, that remains unchanged. Okay, so let's not put a box here also because the relations are same as previous. Frequency is qb by 2 pi m, which is inverse of time period, and angular frequency is qb by m. Okay, now what is pitch of the helix? Now you see, when the charged particle completes an oscillation and the next oscillation, right? Now, since it is having two kinds of motion here, since the path is helical, the motion is helical, therefore the charged particle also has a linear displacement along the magnetic field. Okay, so that is denoted by P, and we call that as pitch. So one oscillation, second oscillation, so there is a linear displacement here, right? In this particular alignment, we can call it as horizontal displacement. Now if you just twist this diagram by 90 degree, in that case you will say vertical displacement. So we are not calling it as horizontal or vertical, rather we are calling it as a linear displacement, P. Now that P is your pitch. Now who is responsible for the charged particle to move along the magnetic field? This v cos theta is responsible. Therefore this pitch, this linear displacement P is given by velocity in time, that is v cos theta into t. So the relation comes out to be 2 pi m v cos theta divided by qb. So that is your expression for pitch. Now we come to cyclotron next, and this is the last topic. We have a couple of relations here which will match with the previous expressions. So what is a cyclotron? In a cyclotron you have two magnets, electromagnets, north pole and south pole. You can see the setup here. So in between the magnets you have this, what do you call as Ds, two semicircular cases, you can say. Now what do you use the cyclotron for? Cyclotron is used to accelerate positive charge particles. Okay, so for that we have this in this setup, you have to apply a high frequency electric field, okay, across this high frequency electric field, and the magnetic field is perpendicular. You can see the north pole is here and the south pole is here, so the magnetic field lines will go in this manner. Now at the center you have a charged particle, right? This charged particle will be given a linear motion initially, and because of this perpendicular magnetic field it will start describing a circular path, right? And finally when it comes out through the window, it has tremendous velocity or tremendous speed and kinetic energy. So straightway getting into, okay, before getting into the relation, so we can understand one thing here. when the charged particle accelerates only in the gap regions. Now, when the charged particle completes this semicircular path, right? Now the time period of the applied electric field is reversed in such a manner that when the charged particle just leaves this particular d's, then this will become positive, this d will become positive, this will become negative. As a result, the positive charge will be accelerated in this gap region. Again, when it completes this semicircle, again when it reaches here, just it leaves the d number 2. In that case, this will become positive and this will become negative. Again, it will accelerate. So after a period of acceleration, after a series of acceleration, when it keeps on revolving here, right? Finally, when it comes out through the window, it has tremendous kinetic energy and tremendous speed. Okay, so let's see the relation. So here also the magnetic force provides the necessary centripetal force, and the radius relation is mv by qb, just as previous. The time taken to complete a semicircle, right? Time taken to complete a semicircle, we denote that with small t. Now semicircle, a particular semicircle has circumference pi r and divided by speed v. So pi by v into radius relation is mv by qb above, right? This gives you pi m by qb. This is the time needed by the charged particle to complete a semicircle. Now capital T here is the time period of the high frequency electric field, right? Now for the charged particle to accelerate, the time taken by the particle to describe a semicircular path should be equal to T by 2. That means small t should be equal to capital T by 2. What is capital T here? Time period of the high frequency electric field. Okay, time period of the electric field, you can say. So capital T is equal to 2 pi m by qb by using the relation for a small t. Now again, this capital T relation is we have come across this previously in the expression where the charged particle was entering perpendicular to the magnetic field. Now you can also call this capital T as the time period of the charged particle to complete one oscillation. Okay, under what grounds? You see, as the radius increases, the speed of the charged particle also increase. Okay, so r and v, they increase together. In such a case, t remains constant. So whether it be the smallest semicircle or the largest one, right? In both the cases, that small t or the capital T is the of course it is the time period of the electric field. Also, it can be considered as the time period of the charged particle to complete one time needed to complete one oscillation. So in both the cases, this is depending on mqb. Okay, so once you consider a particular charged particle, say proton or an alpha particle, this m and q is constant, right? And the b applied field is also constant. Therefore, t remains constant all through. Small t remains constant all through. Okay, they don't change. And finally, we have the expression for. So after this, okay, not finally, energy will come at last. So after this, we have the cyclotron frequency 1 by t, and this is also qb by 2 pi m, and then we have angular frequency of the cyclotron, that is qb by m, and lastly we have energy gained by the charged particle, by the positive charge. So that is equal to half mv square. What is the relation for v? The relation for v from equation number 1. From equation number 1, you can find it out here. V is equal to qbr divided by m. Let this be equation number 1. So if you use that value here, qbr divided by m square, right? So you get q square b square r square divided by twice m. This is the expression for kinetic energy of the particle, right, which is coming out. Now for maximum kinetic energy, Q square B square divided by twice m into R maximum square. That means this is the energy of the exiting charge particle, right? This is the energy at any instant. Okay, so here we are using R max when R is maximum, because the other parameters are constant here. Q, B and M is constant. So when R is maximum, the kinetic energy gained by the charge particle will be maximum. So this is it, what we have in today's class. Thank you, and we'll have one more lecture tomorrow, and then we'll solve the questions associated. You can send me your queries in WhatsApp and try to address in the best possible manner. Thank you.